Joining us, I welcome on stage Imam Abdullah Jubril Saba of Afrissance Nigeria shall be discussing the topic, living our core values, being the best example. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله والصلاة والسلام وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه والتابعين إلى يوم الدين. الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا ما رضيت ولك الحمد بعد رضا ولك الحمد أبدا أبدا أبدا. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم آمين. أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All thanks, all adoration, all gratitude, all blessings belong to Almighty Allah. I bear witness that there is none that deserves my worship. There is none that deserves. I used to pray Tahajjud Itikaf with the Imam, and if today I am in love with doing Tahajjud, it's because of the example that he left me with. Right from the days of Abdullah's foundation to Lagos State Secretariat. And those were good times. Those were amazing evenings. And after Asri lectures, some of what has informed and grants you useful knowledge. He has elevated you. We ask him for greater elevation for you. And to cause you to continue to be mentioned in honorable gatherings. And that Almighty Allah continues to make you a worthy example for all of us and a shining light for this team. We ask Him to grant you good health and success in all that you do. I also say a special word of welcome to my brother, Abdullah and the other brothers seated here, and the sisters. And to all of you, once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have a subject called Living Our Values, Being the Best Example. I'm acutely aware of the fact that we're running out of time, so I'll try to summarize my presentation today. I want to remind us all of an obligation that we have. A God-given obligation that we seem to be neglectful of. That's my intention. For a lot of you who have access to this, I would recommend a book by the late Muhammad Abdullah. He is someone who's called the teacher of teachers. He's an Azari scholar who makes significant contributions to contemporary Islamic thought, especially in Quranic studies and Maqasid studies. He wrote a book which was originally his doctoral thesis at Sorbonne in Paris, called The Moral Quran, La Morale du Quran, because it was written in French. And in May last year, we had the good fortune of having this translated to English, and it's now available for all of us. Sheikh Droz talks about morality in Islam on 5 pillars. The first is our obligation as Muslims. The second is on the subject of responsibility. The third is the sanctions, the limits that we are not to transgress. The fourth is that all our actions are based on intention. And the last is on applying honest effort. He says that when you uphold these 5, this is the moral code of Islam, and he links it back to the Quran. And I would recommend for all of us, if we can, to get a copy of this. So I want to speak on one of the things from the first item from Sheikh Droz's thesis, which is obligation. We have a duty for which we have become derelict and could be a major contributor to the continuing instability and lack of progress we are witnessing, particularly in our current immediate environment. We have been complacent in our God-given duty, and we no longer live up to a key value and moral code for this ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored this ummah and elevated it above all others. The people of this ummah were deliberately inspired by Allah to be of huge benefit to all of mankind. But when we examine our current state, and I ask all of us, are we Muslims really living up to this obligation? Let each listener who's hearing me today search their soul and ask themselves, in the communities in which you live and work, are you truly of benefit to the larger community, or are you a burden? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, verse 3, chapter 110, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. It says, Kuntum khayra ummati hurrijat nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tan'awna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You Muslims are the best of the nations, raised for the benefit of mankind. You enjoin what is right and you forbid what is wrong, and you believe in Allah. And in the follow-on part of that verse, because I didn't read the entire verse, he makes you understand that he has granted this same favor to the nations before you, but they failed in their duty. And that's why the honor passed on to you. The question is, how well are you living up to this obligation? Ibn Taymiyyah radiallahu anhu explains that the verses above, he explained them in his essay on enjoining what is right and forbidding wrong, that this nation is the best nation for the people, the most beneficial to them, the one doing them the greatest favor. So we are not beneficial unto ourselves alone. We are meant to be beneficial to the entire generality of humanity. He says this is because they constitute the total good and benefit for the people, where they are enjoining right and forbidding both in quality and quantity, since they enjoin what is right and forbid all that is wrong. And their message is addressed to all the people of the world. Furthermore, Ibn Taymiyyah says, they uphold this institution with jihad, struggle in the path of Allah, with their lives and their property, and this constitutes the complete benefit for the world. To uphold and enjoy what is good and forbid what is wrong is a collective obligation, what the scholars call fard kifaya, upon the entire Muslim Ummah. It is not for a select few. It is for all of us that make that kalima and say La ilaha illallah. Our very existence must be, first and foremost, we are responsible to ourselves. We have a duty to ourselves. We have a duty to our Lord. But in this dunya, it should be characterized by the benefits that the entire humanity around us derives from our being in their midst. And we know it is fard kifaya. Why? Because Allah had said earlier in verse 104 of Surah Al-Imran that وَلْتَكُونَ مِنْكُمْ هُمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And from among you there should be a party who invites to good and enjoy what is right and forbid the wrong, and this is it that shall be successful. May Almighty Allah cause us all to succeed. So Allah has enjoined us to do this. He has even commanded us to do this. So it is an obligation. The imperative also requires that we support each other in genuine brotherhood as guardians to each other. And even in that, as we're guidance to each other, we still enjoin good and forbid evil. Like the Sheikh said before he went, Al-Mumin kal-Mumin kal-Bunyan, Yashudu ba'du ba'd. Each of us is like a brick in a wall, one supporting the other. That is who we are. That is where we derive our strength. It's in the living of our values, in enjoining all that is good and forbidding all that is evil. Allah describes the believers by saying, وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. That as for the believing men and believing women, they are guardians of each other, they enjoin good and they forbid evil. Enjoining good and forbidding evil is not simply lip service. It's not about speaking out against the evils of society or speaking out about what can be termed as good conduct. The imperative and obligation is not about speech and discourse, but action. The true believers' actions must characterize what enjoining good looks like, such that people within the community will always look to him or her for leadership and example and cannot imagine their community without them. Their character also is such that none of their co-travelers and members of their community will think to do anything that is in clear defiance of the rules of the lawgiver. They are the ones that preserve the dignity of all of creation and choose to see the common basis of our creation, our shared heritage, and universality of being human. And they dwell on that rather than seek to cause division on a few matters on which we differ from others. Ask about how we might recognize true believers. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, he said, إِنَّ مِنْ أَكْمَالِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا وَأَلْطَفُهُمْ بِالْأَهْلِهِ. Verily, the most complete of believers in faith are those with the best character and who are most kind to their families. This is a core essential value for us as Muslims. Husnul khuluq, good character and goodness to our families, starting with our immediate families and radiating to the entirety of mankind, because by extension, we are one. Whether we share the same faith or not, we came from the same source. And Allah reminds us of this at different times in the Quran.
All praises and gratitude is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the controller of all affairs. Admonition Islamic Center hereby express our solidarity with Nigerians at this critical moment of our nationhood due to the scourge of COVID-19 globally. We especially feel for the Muslim Ummah, who from all indications will have to start the 2020 Ramadan season in complete lockdown. There won't be Taraweeh, no physical tafsir sessions, no joint iftar, no itikaf, and possibly no Eid al-Fitr prayers. For the same reason, the AIC is supposed to be 10 years this year, and arrangements have been concluded to feature 10 guest speakers for 10 hours at the prestigious National Art Theatre Igomu, Lagos on Saturday 2nd May 2020. But by Allah's will, it will not hold again. We take solace in the fact that Allah is the best of all planners and He alone knows best. We beseech Allah to spare our lives till next year's Ramadan 2021, inshallah. We pray for Allah's forgiveness, that Allah heals the world, put an end to this pandemic, and give us the privilege to be together for His sake again, to witness more Ramadan in good health. Ameen. Inshallah, our focus this 2020 Ramadan in our own little way is to provide foodstuffs to the fasting Muslims who are in need. May your rewards be great with Allah as you join us to make this dream a reality. For inquiries, call 0802-335-5870, 0808-690-5870, or 0708-378-7920. Account details: Admonition Islamic Center, Bank, Sterling Bank. Account number 050-021-1796. Lukman Adekombi for AIC. Ramadan Mubarak.
On the subject of good character, we receive a hadith narrated by Abdullah, where he reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ittaqillaha haythuma kunta, wa'tabi'i sayhatu hasanatu, tam'uha wa halikin nasa bihulukin hasan." Ittaqillaha haythuma kunta. Be pious. Have piety. Haithuma kunta at all times. And I'll just spend a few minutes describing what piety is. Because again, this is a value for us Muslims to live by. Piety is an unwavering consciousness of the presence of the ever-watchful gaze of Allah. This is the basis of social justice, which is maybe another topic for another day. But this unwavering consciousness that Allah is watching me and He is constantly checking to see how I am in relation to others is the building principle on which we establish social justice, which is the core ingredient for a stable society. So Allah asks us to be pious. And then He says, وَأَبِّئِ سَيِّئَةً حَسَنًا. We know that sometimes you will do wrong things. But when they happen, either because you wronged yourself or you wronged somebody else, follow it up with a good deed immediately. Tamuha, so that it might erase the evil deed or the wrong deed. We are not a people that do wrong and stand on the wrong that we've done out of arrogance. Or choose to say that because I'm in a higher position of authority than you have to take it like that. Because I am older than you, because I'm your senior, because I'm richer than you, because I'm a man and you're a woman, you just have to accept it. When we've done wrong and we understand that we have transgressed the hudud of Allah, the limits He has set for us, we must immediately follow it up with a good. And the least amount of good that we can do is to apologize. But beyond apologizing, it is better for you if you make restitution. Because when you do that, then Allah wipes off the record of the evil deed. And when you build this kind of character, you don't just keep it within yourself. Allah says in our relations with everybody, we must conduct ourselves with good character. That is the test. When we see someone and they're talking about them in the same way the Sheikh spoke about the father of their brother here, and all the stories they tell are that of good character, wallahi, we can take it that this person was a Muslim, was a good Muslim. So the question to you therefore is, what is it that people are saying about you and your character when you are not there? This is the true test of whether or not we're living our values. Now, in a bid to enjoy what is good and forbid what is bad, we must still be kind. We must uphold justice. We must show compassion. And we must apply wisdom. And this is perhaps why, for a lot of us, we probably want to invest time in understanding the maqasid, the objectives of the Sharia. Because it's almost as though we are focused too much on the penal code of the Sharia, which is only about 3% of the total embodiment of the Sharia, and neglected the remaining 97%, which is really about the rules and regulation for building an orderly society. Anytime people talk to you about the Sharia, what you tend to hear is confusion around the penal code or the perceived harshness of the penalties or the sanctions. But the beautiful part of it, you never get to hear. So we must spend time trying to study this, because in Islamic Sharia, anything that is not built on justice, anything that is not built on compassion, anything that is lacking in wisdom, or anything that does not pursue goodness at all times is suspect. And we must go and check if this is being read out of context. The eminent scholar and jurist Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya said, the whole of Islamic teachings is about benefit for humanity in this life and the hereafter. In fulfilling our obligation, therefore, we must still remember to be merciful. I don't need too much of a reminder. This is time to round up. Thank you. And on this subject of mercy, the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith reported by Abdullah ibn al-Am, he says, Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum Rahman. Those who are merciful will be shown mercy by the most merciful. Irhamu man fil ardi yarhamukum man fis sama. Be merciful to those on earth, and the one in the heavens will have mercy upon you. Dear brothers and sisters, this ummah must rise. We must go back to the basics. Each and every one of us must recommit ourselves to the sincere worship of Allah and complete our duty to Him. It is in the completion of our duty that we were once historically, in the knowledge of sciences and arts. It was in upholding our responsibility to all of mankind that we were the preferred and referral point in the fields of medicine, literature, astrology, commerce, and innovation. You and the ones that came before you taught this world how to conduct trade and commerce with dignity, dutifully entering contracts and respecting the terms of your agreements. Yours were the greatest citadels of learning, and you epitomized all that was good and moral conduct. We have, however, left all of this behind. The best amongst us no longer speak for us. The worst of creation emerges our rulers and leaders over us in all aspects of endeavor. We have become like the people that Allah's Messenger ﷺ described in a hadith reported by Nu'man ibn Bashir, that the parable of the one who observes the limits prescribed by Allah and the one who transgresses them is the likeness of people who board a ship after casting lots. Some of them are in its lower deck and others are in the upper deck. Those in the lower deck, when they need water, they go to the upper deck and say, look, can we make a hole in the bottom of the ship? We will not harm you. You just need water. So rather than coming up to meet you, we just want to make a hole so the water can come out and meet us. If those on the upper deck, if you leave them to carry out their plan, they will all be drowned. But if you stop them, you will all be saved. And in this hadith encapsulates our responsibility to mankind to enjoy what is right and forbid what is evil. By keeping quiet, by not taking action, by not speaking out, we are almost like allowing people to drill a hole in the ship to get access to water. The destruction will take them and us away. The Almighty Allah spare us from such an evil end. If we are truly Muslims, then it means we are called to change the society for the better. We cannot allow those who intend to succeed by blatantly transgressing the limits of Allah continue to lead us in a direction that will end in our collective destruction. The Reformation mission begins with each of us, in our personal capacity, to work towards having the best example in all that we're inspired to do, to work towards being the best example in all that we're inspired to do by Almighty Allah. We can no longer hide in the shadows. The divine project for me and you is not to be invisible or to be shy or to apologize for our religion. It is to stand out and excel in all that we do and to stand firm on the path of guidance and obedience. The Almighty Allah inspires us to actions that meet with His pleasure. We ask Him to grant us all the good of this world and not deny us any of the rewards in the hereafter. We ask Almighty Allah that He makes obedience of His divine law easy for us, that He chooses us above all of creation and grants us succession on the land. We ask that He brings us to our objective and grants us a beautiful ending to our affairs. We pray for our hosts that Almighty Allah continues to enable them grow from strength to strength and puts His barakah in all that they do, and that the rewards of all the good that they are doing in society is granted them in this world and the hereafter. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khayri kullihi ajilihi wa ajilihi ma 'alimna minhu wa ma lam na'lam wa na'udhu bika min ash-sharri kullihi ajilihi wa ajilihi ma 'alimna minhu wa ma lam na'lam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun 'alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum.
At-takbir. The true definition of eloquence, calmness, intelligence. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you, keep making you a good example for each and every one of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you a blessing to this ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep blessing you and elevating you in all the things that you do. You know, we stand, we look forward, and we see people like you in front of us, inspiring us and motivating us to do greater things. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep sparing you for us, inshallah. We'll give room for questions and answer. If you have questions, kindly signify by putting up your hands. We'll count once. We'll take 3 questions from the brother's side. We'll take 3 questions from our mother's side. Before the question, we would take a quick interlude. While you prepare your questions, I must say that you should, as much as possible, try to make your questions brief.
Assalamu alaikum. So the title of the book is Morality in the Quran, the Greater Good of Humanity. The author is Muhammad Abdullah Droz. Droz is D-R-A-Z. And I've written it down. I'll leave it with the organizers, the title of the book. Unfortunately, I don't have any copies to give out. Morality in the Quran, the Greater Good of Humanity. It only became available to us in English last May, but it is a seminal work in Islam. In fact, Sheikh Droz attained the highest level of distinction at the Sorbonne University in Paris for this thesis, and it remains unrivaled and unparalleled since. So it's a must for every Muslim home, I think. On the text of my presentation, yes, it was written down. I shall endeavor, inshallah, I need to make some small edits to have it emailed to the Admonition Islamic Center email address. A question was asked about a deliberate intention around mentorship. I'm sure Dr. Bashir Rashidi will also tell you that he does this. Maybe it even takes a lot more of his time than he's able to allow for. May Almighty Allah expand time for us. Also, please remember that I'm an imam at a masjid on Lagos Island. So mentorship is something that we already do. Is it in a structured manner? Can we do better perhaps? I think it's a challenge you've thrown to us, and may Almighty Allah make it easy. I believe there are different platforms that are making this available now, and may Allah expand time for us so that we can make ourselves be of benefit to more people. Advice for young Muslim professionals who are keen on projecting a Muslim identity. I'm a bit conflicted about this because the Muslim identity does not end with growing a beard or any of those other outer manifestations. Today we see people with dreadlocks, men with dreadlocks in corporate environments, with earrings in corporate environments. There's absolutely no reason why anybody would hold how we choose to dress against you if you are the best at what you do. The objective for you is to be such that you are indispensable. When you are indispensable, when people actually understand the value you bring, and remember this was the crux of the presentation, that the community cannot imagine life without you, then whatever you need to do in accordance with your faith, they would allow. And that is even the highest form of dawah. And I've seen it work in practical terms, and that's why I can stand by it. So I would say whatever it is you do, ensure that you are the best at doing it, ensure that you are delivering value that cannot be discounted. Castigating people who want to follow the sunnahs and the imams and sheikhs, confusing Muslims, I would be very careful to respond to this. I wish Sheikh Ahmad was here to address it. Compared to these people, I'm an molecule. I'm accidentally on this path. May Allah make it easy for me, so I can't speak to this subject. The only thing I can tell you is that always subject whatever you hear. And Jasser Auda, Dr. Jasser Auda, Jasser is Jasser, Auda, Auda. I think Micah has brought him to Nigeria a few times. Is a scholar of Maqasid al-Sharia, the objectives of the Sharia, and he's written several books, and there are several articles he has online and on YouTube. You can listen to his interviews and his lectures. He has made this a bit clearer for us. When you hear an injunction that does not have within it compassion for the rest of humanity, that does not have justice, that is not based on wisdom, and is not for the betterment of the entire humanity, then investigate. Because it's very likely, one, it is not Islam, or two, something is being interpreted out of context. So, my dear brother, may Almighty Allah continue to increase him in wisdom. He has something he says, that sometimes we take medicine from doctors that have not diagnosed us. We take medicine prescription from people that have not diagnosed our issue. Issues around Sharia and some of these things they are mentioning are contextual. And Islam allows Islam reformation. Because when we realize that a particular fatwa, the context of the environment has changed, then the jurists of faith need to come together and, using the sciences of faith, come up with a position that is more adaptable for society. But we ourselves have to become knowledgeable, like he says. Because if a doctor came to you now and said, we are not all doctors, but if you went to a doctor that said, oh, take 9 tablets of this antibiotic morning, afternoon, and night, wouldn't you want to seek a second opinion? But are you a doctor? No, but you just feel like taking 9 tablets of an antibiotic 3 times a day doesn't sound right. So someone comes and says, zina is halal. I'm not going to have argument with him. I'll listen to his opinion. Then I go and do my own research. People like this will continue to exist. It is not a reason for us to get into battles with one another. It is when we get sucked into supporting one person's position against the other that we continue to perpetuate this. If we instead fall back on the position of knowledge and try to understand where has this come from, it doesn't sound logical, then we can come to a place of help where people can make clear to us that which is obscure to us. Wallahu alam, the Almighty Allah have mercy on us all. So that's, I think, all the questions that I got. So there are a couple of questions here. There is one, the sister asking about the subject of Ruqyah and some form of deliverance. I don't want to go into the gist of the question. I think it's very personal. I will advise, is it possible for them to send to your email address and you forward this to me so I can take it up personally with the person? So there is an AIC center at yahoo.com. If you can send the exact details of what this issue is, inshallah we might be able to support and help. I don't think it's something that we should table for discussion. The other question is from, so hypothetically, this is around, you used to commit a particular sin before, like steal money from some people. You've realized the error of your ways and you're seeking atonement. One of the best ways to do this is to speak with those people and seek their forgiveness as well. The first thing to do is to do genuine tawbah, repentance to Almighty Allah, first and foremost. But then you must speak to them so that you clear whatever is in their hearts towards you. They might also already know about this. Take the opportunity of this second third of the month of Ramadan. This is the period for us to ask for a lot of forgiveness from Allah. So ask Him for forgiveness. Ask Him that he should remove. So say that dua of Prophet Musa, ask him to help you. To make your speech clear when you speak to them. So you must still go and talk to them so long as it doesn't put you in harm's way. And Almighty Allah will make it that because of this holy month we are in, and because we are all searching to reconcile with our Lord, to reconcile our place with Allah, they would also be open to what you have to share with them. Do not delay in doing this, and take advantage of this second third of the holy month. Do not despair of Allah's mercy. He is Al-Ghafur for a reason. If He wasn't going to forgive you, He would not have created sin. And He has said in the Holy Quran that if you do not sin, He would wipe you all away and create a people that will commit sin. So He's waiting for you to forgive you. Remember the verse that our brother at the beginning from our Tanzil school recited to us? He is waiting for you to ask. He says He has answered the call of the person who is calling. He didn't say call and I would answer. He said He has already answered. And the command is for us to ask Him. It's a commandment. We must ask Him. So when you ask Him, you have two benefits. One, for obeying His commandment, and two, whatever it is that we have asked for being granted to us. And we are also encouraged, run towards the forgiveness of your Lord. Run towards the forgiveness of your Lord. So please, make tawbah, ask for forgiveness, and reconcile with the people in question. The last one, dressing is part of character, moral. Is it morally acceptable for our females to put on trousers or shorts apart from the hijab and the coat? Please kindly expatiate on the part of the female identity. I'm sorry, I don't think I am qualified enough to answer this. We need a scholar of fiqh for this. Fiqh is the weakest area of my knowledge and it's something I'm working on. All I ask you to do is think about what is decent. Think about what is decent. If you feel wearing shorts, objectifying the form of your body, your sexuality is a decent thing to do, wallahu alam. I think when you search your soul, you know what the right answer is. Yeah? Allah has made it such that within each of us, in our conscience, there is a light. The Muslim's light is twofold. Every human being has a light from Allah, his conscience, which tells him what is right and what is wrong. The Muslim, Nur ala Nur, has an additional one, by virtue of what Allah has revealed. If between those two, you can reconcile this position within yourself, I do not imagine that any shaykh can help you. But please ask when you have scholars of fiqh in the room, so that they can tell you exactly what the hadith says. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.